This is the Broodcast on Poets at War, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. And now, the Broodcast.
And beginning recording. Yep, that looks about right. You want to say something?
Something.
Something.
I have obeyed instructions.
Oh, boy. So, let's see. I got my webcam working. Look at that. Is it all working on your end?
Oh, you want me to have a webcam?
You can if you want to. You don't have to. It's totally optional in the Broodcast. I've just been wanting to do mine, and it hasn't been working for some stupid firewall reason or another, and just started trying it again recently and testing it and getting it to work. There you are.
'Tis I.
You've got upstairs.
What?
You've got upstairs.
I do have upstairs, yes. That's cool. Last time we spoke, I was in the upstairs. But
for ease of interest.
Hello, Alex.
Hello?
How are you?
there he is.
I don't know. How are you guys?
Pretty good. Webcam optional. I finally got mine working, so.
Cool.
But yeah, so the three amigos are here. We'll see who else trickles in. But, I know, right? Have you
Hey,
seen?
you came up with it.
Had you seen the three amigos, Brendan? No. I think we talked about this.
We talked about
Yep.
I need to see the Three Amigos, apparently.
Yep, it is
And I have
submitted.
a long list of movies I need to see.
I hear that. Yeah, I still have a pretty big list, but it's mostly movies that, like, people take really seriously when they talk about them. And, like, I want fun. So, it's one of those things. One of the big ones that comes to mind is, the two that I used to get mixed up all the time, now I have them completely straight, are, just because of the name, Shawshank Redemption and Schindler's List. So,
Yeah. Shawshank is great. I haven't seen Schindler's List.
so Nazi movies, unless there's Indiana Jones opposing them, a little bit of a drag usually.
Fair enough.
Jojo Rabbit was fun in its own weird,
Jojo Rabbit's amazing.
crazy way.
Jojo Rabbit is my favorite movie.
That's right. You've talked about that before. That's awesome.
Yep.
Had you seen that one, Brendan, or no?
Oh, hello.
I have not seen Jojo Rabbit, but I have seen parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the opening, well, not the, but I saw when I call the Heil Hitler scene.
That is correct.
'Tis amusing.
Yeah. It's hard to believe that the same guy who made Jojo Rabbit also made Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yep, Taika Waititi. He did Ragnarok too, and I like Ragnarok.
He did Ragnarok. Ragnarok is fun, but Love and Thunder just goes so far off the rails.
Yeah, I stopped at the last Spider-Man just because that was so fun that I wanted to have, like, I wanted to hold there for a little while.
Yeah.
I'll eventually catch up.
Nah.
Not completely.
Mhm.
There's some stuff I'm definitely skipping, period. But, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
I've it's not like, I mean, I've never been a huge fan of the superhero genre to begin with. Unless you count anime, because
Some anime.
characters in anime are basically the superheroes, despite the fact that they're not superheroes. Right. Right. You got, like, they just sort of change why they have superpowers. It's just a different flavor of superpower. It's magic. It's innate special talent. It's their legendary heroes. It's whatever,
Right.
So, but like that was one thing about Ragnarok that I really appreciated. The Thor versus Hulk fight was, and it was an anime fight.
Oh yeah,
It was.
In live action. And I was like, I was so happy that they did that
he's
because
a friend from work.
look, this can be done. It can be done and it can work. That was
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think my favorite was the as far as action in Ragnarok was the wolf on the Rainbow Bridge situation. That's just so so Norse, fun, crazy, over the top mythology. They tried really hard in Thor 1 to make everything like super serious when it came to Asgard, and then we got to actually have some fun. Play Thor Ragnarok. Oh yeah. So
Well, the Thor franchise is probably the weirdest franchise of all of the Marvel universe because the first one was directed by Kenneth Branagh, who directs Shakespeare.
Yep.
Like that's his stuff. And then
he did a good job with it. I like Thor.
He did.
I think it's way better than people give it credit for.
It's better than people give it credit for. Thor 2 is also better than people give it credit for.
It is, but
Completely different.
But it has very little bearing on either the big plot or its own plot. It's kind of just like, this happened and then this happened. But there's a lot of good stuff in it. Yeah.
Yeah, they had to set up the Aether, which is why it existed.
Exactly.
But, yeah. And then they go, they throw all of the levers in the complete opposite direction for Ragnarok. And it worked really well because it led directly into Infinity War and you dropped the humor and got a much more serious Thor. And then Endgame makes Thor a joke, and then Taika turns the joke up to 14 in Love and Thunder and completely kills the character.
Yeah.
Like, Thor is dead now. The character that we now call Thor that exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he's not Thor.
Right.
He's simply not. Which is sad.
Yeah. I think Thor's redemption arc in the first one is one of the best in all of the MCU. A lot of people don't talk about it that much, but I really, really feel the pain of him and Odin and the feigned pain of Loki, like through the whole experience of Thor being outcast. There's some really fantastic acting that is Branagh, well, however you pronounce it, doing his thing, as far as getting these guys to get proper reaction. Of course, Anthony Hopkins probably helping a lot too. Not just his acting, but helping the other guys, everything. So both directly and indirectly by his, giving them something to react off of.
Yeah.
So
that seems to happen whenever you have a cast of, most everybody in the cast of Thor was kind of newer actors, right? Like,
Natalie Portman and
Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about Stellan Skarsgård. But whenever you have a cast of, like, newer actors, and then you have one actor who's, like, an experienced veteran, that tends to elevate the movie.
Especially
because everybody...
Anthony Hopkins caliber,
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you know Alec Guinness from the original Star Wars? Yes?
Yeah.
Do you know how they got him to be in the movie? Because he was the big star.
I vaguely recall this, but remind me.
Okay. He hated the script.
Yes.
Couldn't stand it. Thought it was the worst written script he'd ever seen. He knew that it was going to be big and went to his agent and said, okay, I hate this script. We're doing it. I want 10% of the franchise. And they gave him 10% of the franchise.
Holy smokes.
So that's the greatest deal ever made in Hollywood.
Yeah. It was a smart decision.
I heard Matt Damon was offered 10% of Avatar and turned it down to continue with the Bourne movies.
And
So yeah, Brendan.
I mean, yeah, I'm just wondering how many of them were new actors, right? Because you have okay, so I'm thinking of the Lord of the Rings, right? Ian McKellen, oh gosh, what's her? Kate Blanchett. They all I at least know about those two because those two, I guess Christopher Lee, I believe also, those two explicitly mentioned in the behind the scenes that they did theater work, right? They didn't air before going into movies. Now, that's not surprising because, at
British acting.
You do theater. Well, I think the same is true of Tom Hiddleston for Thor. So you have, now he's still not as experienced as Anthony Hopkins, but Anthony Hopkins, incidentally, also wrote a waltz, at least.
Really?
He wrote a full-blown symphony waltz.
Is it in a fair amount of music, actually, from what I understand? But yeah.
There's a YouTube video of it. That's the only reason I know that. Well, so he still would have been like the leader actor, probably, or a very prominent thing. But his role in the movie is relatively small because it's still Chris Hemsworth's movie in a way.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm sure Chris doesn't look super young to me, in the sense that, I mean, he's young, but he's not I feel like he should have gotten a couple of gigs before starting on Thor. He's not like Orlando Bloom.
Wasn't him Master and Commander?
Cast as Legolas.
Yeah, wasn't him Master and Commander? Chris Hemsworth?
Hemsworth?
Probably. I could Google that.
I think you remember Chris Hemsworth in Master and Commander.
I maybe Miyazaki.
No. Well, you're thinking. I know that. Oh gosh, I don't know his name, but he plays Stretch in the Fantastic Four. He plays William Wilberforce in.
Yeah, I know he's in there. Yes. Apparently, Billy Boyd was in Master and Commander.
He was. He's great in it.
Chris Larkin is name in Master and Commander, but I don't think.
Yeah, maybe not Hemsworth. No. Okay, I was wrong.
He apparently is.
Okay. So he did a couple of things. He was in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 TV shows. One of them is a regular. Then he was in Star Trek, is Kirk's dad.
That's right.
Yep. Bit part. Perfect Getaway, Cash, and then Thor. So he was a TV show regular in 3 movies, and then Thor.
And then he gets hit. And then he gets cast as Thor.
You know who was one of the big celebrity tryouts for the role of Thor?
Who?
I say big celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
Triple H. The professional wrestler Triple H. Yes.
So, I like how you're like Triple H, and then both of the other two of us are like, we don't know who that is. And I'm sitting here and that's a promotional class.
Yeah.
Joshua's past. That's a promotional.
Yeah, but that's not like an obscure, he's on the level of The Rock and stuff like that, as far as wrestling goes, and he's the Rock
and the guy who was in the second Suicide Squad movie, I think.
John Cena.
Yeah, him. That guy. Those are literally the only 2 people I know.
You know Stone Cold Steve Austin? Wow.
I heard Hulk Hogan.
You know Hulk Hogan.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
How did not know Hulk Hogan? He was in movies all throughout the 90s. Suburban Commando is a piece of hilarious modern cinema.
Do you know who my dad is?
I know who your dad is, and I'm saying your dad would love Suburban Commando. Your dad would love Suburban Commando. I would pay money to watch Suburban Commando with your father. I'm just saying.
Hey, whenever you have the Broodcast, we should make that happen.
Yes. Which we still want to do that, but I don't know if it's going to end up happening, even doing the online one this year, the way things are going right now. I've just been so busy. But, okay, so an interstellar hero from a distant world visits Earth and tries to fit in with a mundane yet kind suburban family. 1990.
Well, that sounds like cringe.
Oh, it is amazing cringe. 1991. Starring Hulk Hogan and who is the interstellar bounty hunter character. Of
course.
And the father of the suburban family that he gets involved with, Christopher Lloyd. Oh, it is so bad and so funny, but
Okay,
it's 90s bad. Like it's light, fun, goofy, fun bad. You know, like a Beethoven movie or something, right? So anyway, well, yeah, go ahead. What were you saying?
that anything with Christopher Lloyd in it is at least worth watching once.
I argue all the goofy family movies he was in the 90s are, every single one of them is like super underrated in its own way, even this one. Like he's just, he brings such a fun, stupid character moment to like everything he does. I've always loved Christopher Lloyd.
There's a really obscure movie. It came out in like 2011, I want to say, called Jack and the Beanstalk: A Tale with a Twist. Have either of you heard of it?
Vaguely. I think I remember seeing it in like Blockbuster.
It is a actually surprisingly really good movie. It's the tale of Jack and the Beanstalk, but it also weaves in a bunch of other fairy tales. And among other things, Christopher Lloyd is the teacher who is teaching everybody history. Behind him on the chalkboard, a flux capacitor is drawn. And the goose that lays the golden egg is played by Gilbert Gottfried. It's really good. In a giant goose suit. He's Gilbert Gottfried, and it's amazing.
Oh, that's just fun.
Godfrey. What's it with Gilbert Godfrey and playing birds?
Right? Like, maybe people just think he sounds like a bird. I don't know.
I don't know why you would think a guy who sounds like this would be a good bard.
More let alone 3.
At least 3. I was gonna say, he was in
3.
Iago.
the Affleck duck.
Affleck
Affleck is the other one, that I was thinking of. He probably played another bird at some point in time.
More than likely. He also played the cricket in Thumbelina in the 90s. So that's fun.
Is that the animated one?
Yes. Which is also underrated, but suffers from 90s Don Bluth syndrome, where he's like, we just need to get this out and make money because we're sinking right now. We need more Land Before Time sequels. I was gonna say though, go back to Christopher Lloyd. I think besides the Page Master, my favorite role of his, and of course Dog, my favorite role of his that no one ever mentions unless you're talking baseball movies, and even then sometimes it's too obscure, is Angels in the Outfield. He plays like the main angel who visits the kid in Angels in the Outfield and tells him we're always watching. And there's just such a really whimsical, he can say we're always watching and not make it creepy. Like, you make it feel like I'm taken care of. You know what I mean? Like, he does such a good job with that. So, but yes, that's a fun movie. Has either of you seen that one?
I know that I've seen it.
But
I watched Angels in the Infield, the sequel.
Oh God, that's horrible.
Yeah, I remember bits and pieces of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have watched that until I did.
Outfield, there's just one moment that's just one of my favorite like cutaway gag style funny moments in any movie. It starts out with this situation where the manager of the club has to drive these two kids back to their foster home, and he says, "Come on, get in the car," whatever. He's like, be all gruff and whatever, and he's watching these kids because he thinks they're good luck charms because they keep winning games because of the Angels, blah blah blah. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna take you home. Let's go. Let's get in the car." And one of the kids is very silently, like almost like autism level, going nonverbal, like refusing to get in the car without saying anything, right? And his buddy goes, "JP doesn't ride in cars," and he says, "His mom his mom wrecked and died in a car," and it's like this really heavy, somber moment. And then like the manager like looks at the kid, and it's like the first time he really has any kind of connection with them. And then cutaway, he's driving them home on the team bus.
I need to watch the movie again.
It is. That one joke is worth the whole movie in my opinion. It's so well timed. Like, you got Danny Glover doing, it's like super, serious Danny Glover stuff as the manager, and then all of a sudden, well, Brandon. Love it. Love it. Did either of you guys bring something to look at?
I mean, I have the second half of the thing that I read last week, but
Oh, yeah. Last month.
whatever.
Whenever it was.
Whenever.
Time is relative.
No, time's not. Well, yeah. Time is relative.
Time is shifty.
I just get the wrong. It's less. I know that it was a month. I just get the wrong word.
Oh, boy. Well, I definitely want to hear that when we get to it. I guess we're just kind of seeing if anyone else shows up.
Yeah.
Little odd, but I guess people have been busy. Things are getting warm. People are staying out later, whatever. But yeah, so I
Meanwhile, the Brood is busy making some.
Yeah, the Brood is favorite music.
All the song references.
see. I was gonna go with like, nobody knows what it's like to be the Batman.
No one knows what it's like to be Batman. Wait.
So maybe verse line.
Oh.
You know what I get tired of?
What?
Batman's the real person. Bruce Wayne is his character. It's alter ego. It's like the dumbest hot take ever. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with it, but it's just
It's not even a hot take.
right.
Half of the comic was Batman saying that, basically. What?
Yeah.
It's a hot take. Stop it.
It's just one of those things. It's like as ubiquitous as like it's not Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein's monster. Isn't it?
Yeah. Because wonderful comic about that, where it's like, oh, it's Frankenstein. Actually, Frankenstein's the scientist, so then Frankenstein's monster is the monster. And then it's like that's a normal person. Then pedant says that. Then super pedant. The super pedant says, actually, if you think about it, the guy who made the monster is really the monster because he left it out on its own. And then the super pedant. Actually, if you think about it, society is the monster for causing monsters to be outcast. And like, we're super pedant. Listen, everybody's just a jerk. There is no good guy.
Then the person who is historically familiar with it is like, no, the monster is actually Percy Shelley.
Either way.
Have either of you read Monsters from the Id? It's on the Canon app.
I'm aware of it, but I have not read it now.
I am awful with books if they're not in paper in front of me. It's just like, it's too easy. You go, what? Shut.
Yeah. I do audiobooks primarily. But as far as actually reading, yeah, I can't read an ebook. I can barely reference a game book on PDF. But yeah, it's a really interesting look at the history of horror from Frankenstein. He hits a little bit on like Greek myths and the elements that inspired later horror artists, but primarily it starts with Frankenstein and Lord Byron and all of that going on at Lake Geneva into Dracula and going all the way up to Alien. And it's really interesting. E. Michael Jones, the guy who wrote it, is kind of an anti-Semite, which is terrible. But yeah, it's a good book.
None of you saw me.
Harry has.
Hello.
Hello, Ian.
Hi. How long have you been on?
Since 8. Like, yeah, we started when we said we were gonna start.
Oh. Okay. I was waiting for some kind of notification or something to tell me you were on.
I'll make sure to.
I really don't understand I do not understand your modern technology.
I said we'd be on at 8. You go on at 8.
I was waiting for a little blurb to come up and say, "You're on. You can join the conversation now." That's what I was waiting for, and it never came.
Well, I'll make sure to do that next time. So
We can make efforts to remember.
Oh, don't make efforts to remember. I just had to remember not to forget how to use the bloody thing. That's all.
I hear you. Video's optional, by the way. Totally up to you. So yeah. What's been up with you, Ian?
Yeah. I don't know how to turn on video.
There's a
Phantom thingy.
that's somewhere. It's usually you mouse over the main screen. I think you have a laptop. And so yeah, you mouse over the main screen and there's a camera button and it says turn on camera. But anyway.
I don't understand it. Never mind.
Yeah, it's not required. Fine.
So yeah, what you been up to?
Okay, so I had a whole list of things that I wanted to cover tonight.
Yeah, fun.
So first of all, I've been working on my comic Legend of the Swordbearer lately. I don't know if I've mentioned that in a really long time. But I've been doing new artwork for that. So that's what I was doing today. Lately I've been listening to Tarzan of the Apes
Nice.
on audiobook. And every time I listen to that, I think, wow, I really relate to this character, and it's really strange.
I hear you.
Because it's like, I haven't been raised by apes.
Far from it.
I haven't spent any time in Africa. I didn't even grow up that rough, but it's just like, I don't understand modern society, and modern society does not understand me.
Sure. But do you also relate to Frankenstein's monster?
I haven't read Frankenstein.
That's worth a read.
I need to make time to read that.
No. So yeah, what's on your big list of stuff to get to?
Yeah, those were the two big things, and then I had something else that Sarah Levesque sent me a bunch of really cool books that she found at a used book sale.
Nice.
Ooh. So that was pretty cool.
What'd you do?
The Allegory of Love by C.S. Lewis.
Well,
The Pilgrim's Regress, also by C.S. Lewis. Last of the Mohicans.
not by C.S. Lewis.
Not by C.S. Lewis. No.
Yeah, I want to make AI ChatGPT write like a chapter of Last of the Mohicans in the voice of C.S. Lewis. That'd be a great idea. Oh, now I'm gonna do it. Okay, while we're talking, go ahead.
She also sent. What?
Continue.
She also sent me a Douay Rheims Bible. It's that's like a really old niche translation of the Bible that was only used by Catholics, and then it kind of went out of style about the same time as Protestants generally stopped using the KJV. So there are actually a few Catholics that I know that are Douay Rheims onlyists. It's kind of funny. It came out around the same time as the KJV, right around the 1660s. It's translated from the Latin Vulgate. So it's kind of like a weird niche translation of the Bible, and I didn't have one, and she had two, so she said, "Oh, okay, I'll just throw this one in."
That's cool. So are all Catholic English Bibles translations of the Vulgate?
No. I'm not an expert on it, but I know that they use the RSV and the NRSV, which New Revised Standard and New Revised Standard, which are translated in conjunction with other denominations like Lutherans and whatnot. And those are translated from a variety of texts, including the Textus Receptus, the Masoretic text, and the Greek
Septuagint? The Septuagint?
Septuagint. The Septuagint, like the Apocrypha, you can only find those in Greek. So the original Hebrew texts, if they ever existed, are long gone.
Hello, TK.
Interesting.
Oh, TK is here.
She is. She may still be muted as for now.
Yeah.
The question if the microphone is talking. Oh, wait, the splash.
There was Albert.
What exactly is the point of having a microphone on your headphones if your computer won't take it?
We can hear you now.
These are the great philosophical questions.
So, okay, I got my Chat GPT scene from Last of the Mohicans in the voice of C.S. Lewis. Want to see it? It's not long. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Yes.
I have not read.
Anyway,
I pretty much. Okay, so I have not read Last of the Mohicans. You'll have to help me out if this is over my head in any kind of. As the Monroe sisters stumbled through the dense forest, their spirits sank lower with every step. Cora, the elder of the two, took a deep breath and prayed for strength. She knew that her younger sister Alice was in shock and needed her more than ever. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the bushes. Alice let out a gasp, and Cora's heart leapt in her chest. They turned to see three figures emerging from the underbrush: Hawkeye, Chingachgook, and Unkast. The three men were like a vision from another world. Their clothing was rough and worn, but their bearing was regal and dignified. They moved with a grace and power that spoke of a deep connection to the natural world. Hawkeye stepped forward and spoke in a calm, reassuring voice. "We're here to help you," he said. "We've been tracking you for days." Cora felt a surge of hope in her chest. These men were like nothing she had ever seen before. They seemed to possess a deep wisdom and understanding of the world that was beyond her grasp. As they made their way through the forest, the Monroe sisters couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the power and beauty of the natural world around them. For the first time in days, they felt a glimmer of hope that they might actually survive this ordeal. In that moment, Cora realized that there was more to the world than she had ever imagined. There were mysteries and wonders that lay just beyond her understanding, waiting to be explored and experienced. And with the help of these three men, she knew that she might just have a chance to see them.
I feel so bad for Sarah because she didn't get the run-up of what this is. That this was ChatGPT's writing of part of The Last of Mohicans in C.S. Lewis voice.
For what?
So what we've learned from...
Exactly.
So what we have learned applies to our lives today.
What we have learned here is that ChatGPT cannot write like C.S. Lewis.
Because I think
It's specifically Lewisian to me.
what they are trying to do was turn everything into metaphysics.
But he didn't do that.
I know he didn't, but
It was just there.
Hey, Sarah, another video. Wonderful. Video optional, folks.
Yeah, video is optional.
But okay, so you say that none of it did, like, you're right. None of it sounded C.S. Lewisy, but at the same time, it sounded like bits and pieces of Lewis's language that were in, but it doesn't know how to distinguish between beats.
Right.
So you have moment and then moment and then moment, but there's no way to string the moments together. Because with Lewis, careful, like this type of language here, but that's followed by this type of language, and it,
Yeah.
Yep. Ian was telling us about the books that he got, and it was like this one by C.S. Lewis, and then this one by C.S. Lewis, and then Last of the Mohicans, and then we said not by C.S. Lewis, but what it was.
The idea to write ChatGPT to tell it, hey, Last of the Mohicans as C.S. Lewis.
Now, what would it do if you asked it to write it like Tolkien?
Oh, goodness.
No, please.
I won't read it unless there's any like specific highlights, okay? Just continue on, going back to whatever we were going.
Oh, what about Chronicles of Narnia in the style of Robert E. Howard?
That could be fun.
Or it could be really terrible.
How about, since you mentioned Tarzan, how about Tarzan in the voice of J.R.R. Tolkien?
Oh,
There. That sounds good.
Okay.
oh, there's Sarah.
Hi.
How did you get the video to work? Because I can't figure it out.
I hit the button.
So on the left side, you see all of our names. Underneath that, there is a little like bar with connection, and there should be 4 buttons. One looks.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm stupid.
No, you're not. You just don't use Discord regularly, like me. Because
Just cordially challenged.
There he is. Please rewrite C.
Wrong way.
Who else has something to say? We're going to probably have to, if we have a bunch of people who are sharing something, we're probably going to have to get to that fairly soon. I know Brendan's bringing something. Ian, you're bringing something?
I don't really have anything to bring.
That's okay. Anyone else?
I'm over here working on my school yearbook because I volunteered to do that back in October when life was easy. Can't show it out.
Yeah.
Picture is pretty rubbish.
Little blurry, but I do see it. I think you shared that one on Facebook, didn't you?
No, not this one. This one is brand new.
Oh, okay, yeah. That looks good, man.
That's really cool.
Good stuff.
Not fully inked yet. I'll probably be working on that while we're talking.
Sounds fun.
Give you a progress report, man. From it along.
I sent my concept for a D&D/fantasy ABC alphabet book for that's kid friendly, but also for older people who play D&D to my editor, and my editor is my sister, because she is a PhD student or was it?
My editor is Sarah.
Yep.
But anyway,
I do that.
Yes, you do that thing. But it's still like super early, rough concept, but I got it all written out, and I'm like, I need to send this to someone before I send it, and to get the words finalized before I try to do any drawings. And by try to do drawings, I mean hire somebody to do drawings. Because after a certain point, I'm just like, nope, can't do that.
But I can. What? One paragraph of Tarzan in the style of Tolkien, supposedly.
Oh, no.
And so, with the strength and determination that belied his age, Tarzan set out on a perilous journey to find Jane and claim his place among the humans. He knew that the journey would be long and difficult, but he was willing to risk everything for the chance to be with the woman he loved.
That last line was not Tolkien.
No, not at all. Not at all.
What we've learned today.
I have no fear of Chat GPT taking over my job.
Better Steve.
Yes. None.
Go. What ChatGPT is really good at are BuzzFeed articles.
Ooh, yeah.
That's because there's no thought process put into that either.
Also, BuzzFeed's going out of business. Surely they're having problems. So,
Oh. Yeah. Wait, have you seen their stock price? The BuzzFeed stock price graph? It's just up, plateau.
no.
I don't.
Great. Love it.
Splat.
I don't pay attention to anything related to that.
To be clear, TK or Sarah, do you guys have anything that you're sharing tonight or no, as far as work?
Actually, I can if no one else.
We got you and Brendan so far, and
No one else. Go ahead.
so Sarah, did you have anything? You good?
I'm totally happy to let TK go. I could probably dig up something that I haven't worked on in a bit, but
We'd love to
yeah,
hear it if you want to.
I'm sure I could dig up something after TK goes.
Okay. All right. Well, we got Brendan as well, so we'll go start with TK. Does y'all good with that?
Yeah, let me just grab some water real fast.
Sure, absolutely.
No, you're not allowed to hydrate. It's only the most important thing to do.
The main thing I've been using this particular iteration of like a ChatGPT thing has been for YouTube descriptions because I don't want to write them anyway. And they actually do a pretty good job of doing that, podcast descriptions, that sort of a thing. And I end up having to change one or two things because it decides to add in information where there is none. Stuff like that. That's the main thing. Like, for example, I didn't say what things were in my folk and fairy tales series, and it said, although I kept it, because I do have one of the things, from the magical world of Cinderella to the adventurous tales of Robin Hood. I haven't written a Robin Hood thing yet. I'd love to do a Robin Hood thing in the future, so I left it in. But it didn't.
Haven't you?
I know, right? Just
Why having not to? For shame.
I have so many.
Robin Hood's hard, man.
My next one is Thumbelina, and it's going to be a 50-poem epic. It's like a big story, little girl and type thing. It's going to be really good.
I mean, there are already a lot of like folk songs about Robin Hood that you could pull from.
Oh yeah. So Robin Hood's definitely on my list. I think the next two are going to be Thumbelina, Beauty and the Beast. But then I might get to Robin Hood, maybe. I love Robin Hood. He was one of my favorites growing up. So, all right, TK, you're back?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Let it rip.
Okay, so this was a story I wrote for a short story contest run by my friend Lisa Slane. I did not win. But these characters and this setting are going to appear in some capacity in my upcoming novel I've been working on.
Okay.
Read you an excerpt of what was basically kind of an introduction thing last month. This is taking on the urban fantasy setting.
Okay.
The title is Fun Times at Swampy's. This place used to be a place of fun and laughter. The whole mall was. Now it was a decaying mass of sepia-colored ruins at the horrendously polluted Lake Albion. Matthias Jackson shone his flashlight around the arcade/restaurant known as Swampy's, where he had spent many happy days playing the games and eating pizza with his friends. In fact, the same friends were around him right now. Kira Ashe, Maud LaFontaine, Ella Barron, and Dolores Gordon. 5 musketeers they had been called at school. They'd been sent to salvage whatever they could by the new owners of the intellectual property to be used in a new, bigger location. Ooh, this place is creepy, Kira's voice echoed. We used to have such fun here, said Dolores, who was more courageous than the rest and had gone further into the old restaurant. Creepy isn't the half of it. Let's get some lights on. The owner said they were still connected, said Lamont. Yeah, my dad's getting something behind me. It's okay. He's ready. Bella. Boy in the Dragon Ball Z shirt turned around to look for the missing girl. Bella! He shouted. Just then the lights came on. 4 remaining young adults all let out shrieks of surprise. Bella, don't do that! Howled Matthias. You should see the looks on your faces, Bella cackled. They now had a better look at the oddly untouched arcade. And one would think that somebody would be in here waiting for copper anyway, observed Dolores. Everything's right where it was when they closed. Kira wandered over to the doors to the kitchen. Yeah, even the kitchen's intact. Ahead of them stood a small stage where 5 figures stood covered in sheets. Next to the stage sat the prize counter and checkout line, where Dolores had been. Let's check the animatronics, said Bella. Should be able to salvage those. And most of the cabinets, said Lamont, dealing with a Pac-Man machine. Cabinet worked to life. What do you know about that? It works. Hey, Lamont, I don't want to interrupt your second childhood, but give it a hand, will you? I don't want to be here after dark, said Akira. What's the matter, Akira? He's Dolores. Afraid of the lady in black? No. Stopped Akira before folding. Yes. It's just a story, said Matthias. Done a ton of research about her. Know that she's not real. Yes, Lamont, helping remove his sheet from one of the animatronics. Well, fairies aren't real, said Matthias confidently. Even if they were, they don't wear black. How do you know? Maybe there's goth fairies, joked Bella. The group stood back to admire their handiwork of uncovering the animatronic band that put this place on the map. Bumpy the Frog, Francis Feathers, Paul Platypus, Shelley the Turtle, and Orville Otter all were the finest animatronics this side of Disneyland, even better than ones at other larger chains. They'll look critically at the robots. Well, the platypus didn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm convinced that God made the platypus just to mess with us, said Lamont. Excuse me. We should run the diagnostics, because Akira's right. We shouldn't be here around after dark. This isn't the best side of town, said Matthias. Bella climbed up on the stage, followed by Dolores. The control room was behind a false wall in the back of the stage. Yell and tell us if they're working, boys, called Dolores. Boys stood looking around while the girls worked backstage. The faint wall was so thin they could clearly hear what was going on. Floppy disks? Look at this computer. I think there's dinosaurs younger than this thing. Ouch. Okay? Our rat must have nibbled this wire. Pass me the electrical tape, will you? Boot, darn it. We should smack it. You're kidding? Look at this plastic. I'm afraid to breathe on it. Oh, there we go. Here goes nothing. Frog jerked to life with a hiss of hydraulics. The robot stuttered and choked as it warmed up. Finally, intelligible words came out. Howdy, folks. I'm Swampy, and welcome to Swampy's. Boys cheered and exchanged high fives. It's alive! Alive! Matthias shouted with a cartoonish evil laugh. Running Francis's program, called Dolores. Bird blinked and called out, Yee-haw! I'm Francis! You ready to have some fun, kids? This must have been when Francis was a boy, said Lamont. Paul Platypus tapped his foot and strummed his banjo. Don't be shy, Paul, said Swampy. Say hi to the kids. Face of innocence. Girls stuck their heads out of the control room. The boy's eyes went big as dinner plates. He knew this pre-show by heart. Paul wasn't supposed to make a rumbly noise, and Swampy would remark that he didn't talk much. At no point did Paul ever say anything like that. Let's have a glitchy disc. Move on to Shelley, said Dolores, clearly shaken. Okay. Shelley, the drummer, rattled in her seat and spouted something in what sounded like Latin. That ain't right, whispered Lamont. Just calm down, guys. It's probably some kind of prank, said Matthias, trying to put on a brave face. Orville Otter was the last one to go, the bass player. He moved his head and chattered, Bring me children. Girls came out and looked worriedly at their friends. There was no ambiguity in what the robot said. They were all witnesses. Let's go look in the back rooms. We must have the wrong floppies, said Bella, giving the robots a wide berth. Yeah, that must be. Let's go. Matthias looked at his friends. They were all terribly shaken up. He smiled bravely and opened the door to the back rooms where the storage and offices were. There were 2 rooms, one marked management, the other marked props. And at the end of the hall, painted in a fading blue and yellow, a 3rd door. Over the door was written, The Smile Room. The Smile Room? Read Dolores. There's something not right about this, said Lamont. Lamont's right, we need to get out of here, Akira worried. Just check the rooms real quick, said Bella. I'm not leaving until I figure this out. Okay, but make it quick, Lamont muttered. Though the rooms were small, all 5 crammed into them, unwilling to be alone. Search of the manager's office and the prop room turned up nothing. He stood at the end of the hall staring at the smile room door. Forrest gulped and walked up to the door. Bella, I don't know about this. Are you a man or a mouse, Akira? She swung open the door and turned on her flashlight. The room was quite large, but the only things in it were 5 arcade cabinets covered in tarps. Weird, Forrest's voice echoed through the room. Weird? Della, nothing has not been weird, exclaimed Lamont. Everyone came into the room and pulled out their flashlights. Forrest grabbed a tarp and pulled it off the cabinet. Yixixar? I never heard of this game, Dolores said. He jiggled the joystick and it blinked to life, revealing a pixelated image of a tentacled monster. It's like a bullet hell game. I don't remember these, said Matthias. Wonder why they're not out on the floor. They're not plugged into anything, observed Bella. Guys? Sort of panic entered Akira's voice. Look down. The quartet looked down and saw a disturbing sight. A pentagram painted in red on the floor. They looked at each other for a second before Matthias called, Everyone out! Girls first! Out! Out! Run! The 5 ran pell-mell out the door, Bella and Dolores first. The 5 ran through the restaurant as the robots shrieked, Come and play with us! Ran through the abandoned mall. Dolores tripped and fell. Akira, who was closest to her, stopped and pulled her up on his back. They ran and they didn't stop until they reached the doors to the parking lot. Matthias held the door open for his friend and shouted, Go, go, go! He counted heads as they ran out to the darkening parking area. He was relieved to find the gang all there. You okay, Della? Fainted Akira, laying her down off his back. Yeah, I think I'm okay. I just twisted my ankle. Tried to put weight on it and fell again. Ouch! Lamont looked at each of his friends. What the heck was that? He exclaimed. I don't know, Lamont, said Matthias quietly. You're the answer in all that freaky stuff. I'm the wrong color to be investigating this, man. He shook his head. It was all just a theory before. Up in the distance there came a sound of singing, which I will not attempt because I cannot sing to save my life. I never will marry, I'll be no man's wife. Friends froze, and as one looked towards the lake, somewhere a dog barked. I expect to live single for the rest of my life. From the marshy grasses and scraggly trees came a figure, a woman wearing a long black dress with bell sleeves. She had a long black veil and a crown of silver stars and carried a mirror in her hands. The shells in the ocean will be my deathbed. The lady in black, whispered Akira. The fish in deep water swim over my head. She paused and looked at them. She was pale, and her big dark eyes stared right into their souls. Children, do not come here again. Beware the demon in the waters. We're too scared and astonished to answer her. She walked up into the grasses singing, Cold blows the wind, my true love. Cold blows the driving rain. I never had but one true love. In the greenwood he was slain. Matthias and Akira picked up Dolores and they ran for their van. Font and Bella on their tail. Bella jumped into the driver's seat shouting, Get in the van, get in the van, get in the van! Font climbed in shotgun. Matthias, Akira, and Dolores climbed in the back. Bella slammed on the gas, swung the van around. Akira gave what would have been a comical scream under other circumstances, and drove onto the highway. When they had put enough distance between themselves and the mall, Bella pulled over and stopped the van. Daddy, what do we do now? She asked. Better call somebody. Who? The Ghostbusters? Questioned Akira. I don't know yet, but we'll come up with something. And that's the end of that.
Well done, ma'am. Well done.
I remember you sharing that and us workshopping that. That was fun.
That was great. That was very goosebumpy.
Well,
And I mean that
that's
positively.
cool.
Yeah, I mean that positively. It felt very goosebumpy. It was also reminded me a little bit of the Wally McDougal series of the way the kids interacted with one another. And also, I mean, obviously, like the Five Nights at Freddy's thing that's kind of been a craze lately, you know. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think the highest compliment you could get is someone says, oh, I didn't even think of Five Nights at Freddy's. That would be really good. It's about, like, I said it was like a combo of Five Nights at Freddy's and Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, that's the feeling I was going for.
I like that.
Success.
Yep.
I think I agree with Joshua. Now that you say that, from what few Goosebumps books that I've read, he does sort of have that kind of vibe to it as well. Which
The way the kids the way the kids interact is very Bill Myers to me. I don't know if you guys have ever read Wally McDougal or the Bloodhound series.
Bloodstone, do you mean?
No, Bloodhounds. It was a detective brother and sister. Bill Myers, he did some stuff for Adventures in Odyssey, but he wrote a lot of like, what is below middle grade?
Elementary.
Yeah, like it's blurring the line between elementary and middle grade fiction, comedy fiction, mostly. But there was a series called Bloodhounds that he did Bloodhounds Incorporated. That really reminds me of that. It was like a brother and a sister and their dog, and they solved mysteries and stuff like that. And the spooky mysteries reminded me of that a little bit.
I've never read that. I've never read any of the stuff that you're referencing to. I love it. I thought it was great. It was unlike anything I'd ever read. So,
has anyone? Can I reference McGee and Me and get anyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Bill Myers created McGee and Me. Okay, so this is who created McGee and Me. This is his like book. He had like two or three fairly big book series as well that were
yeah.
Okay,
I've read several of his books, but I didn't realize that he created McGee and Me.
Yeah. The Wally McDougal series was the My Life As, and then ... Every book was titled My Life As a Smash Burrito with Extra Hot Sauce, a bunch of other goofy titles, with really grotesque covers.
Yes, I recognize the covers now.
What were you saying, Brendan?
No, I thought I heard TK trying to say something while you were talking. I just wanted to make sure that we got what was said. But
gotcha. Any other thoughts on TK's thing? I think she's definitely on the right track. I like how polished it is already.
Yeah, well, it's
the character interactions are really organic. They feel like real kids. Again, I was impressed by that particularly. Like it really felt like real and stupid real kids. You know what I mean? I loved them. I was like, this is if I was 8 or 9, I would be like, oh, these are the cool kids. And then like and then any older than that, I'm like, wow, these guys are like.
Yeah, it's funny because at least one of the people who it's based off of definitely weren't the cool kid in high school, even though like now he has a huge following on YouTube. But
oh boy. Well, let's see. I just pulled something up that I can get into, but that's more of an idea conceptual thing. I want to get to Sarah's. I want to get to Brendan's. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'm just looking at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ready? Over.
What? You need to go. You need to go first, Brendan.
I don't need to go first. I just want to make sure that I've got 4 pages, right? And so I don't know if it's going to take too long.
Go for it.
I mean, we can record as long as we want to record. I'll tell you when to stop. I'd like to get everyone's stuff in here. Broodcasters can be longer. That's fine.
That's fine. Just wanted to make sure that wasn't overstaying my welcome. So, last time, I introduced Fiolin, the commander, kind of the captain a little bit. But now, that was the first half of the first chapter I attended. This is going to be the second half. So Fiolin, where you last left off, the commander just gave Fiolin, who is known as Farseer, basically a job. Fiolin's job is to find 3 scouts, look at the enemy forces, try to find out as much information about the enemy forces as you can, and try to locate this thing called a start. That's all the information that you are given at present. So we're going to start with Fiolin beginning his work. Okay. Minutes later, Fiolin was ready. 3 concentric rings of guards surrounded him, Commander and the young captain standing next to him. He sat cross-legged on the grass and unlinked the black veil that was tucked in his hood, letting it fall down so its face was covered. The chain that held the censer was woven around his hand and dangled loosely, the scent from the incense wafting upward. He interlocked his finger, pointing the index into a triangle, and setting it in front of his face. Then he locked his body in that position, as he was trained to do. Now comes the hard part. The unintended thought whirred in, but Violan pushed it aside. He shut his eyes and began to focus, systematically every sense he could. He felt his hands trembling, unaccustomed to the weight of the censer. An exhale. Excuse me. Relax. The spasms subsided. Focus. The wind, the ocean waves, the sound began to fade away. Silence grew. A water droplet dripping into a shallow puddle in a cave. The sound didn't echo. Wasn't a flat sound either. Focus. The taste of incense was more from before disappeared, but the slimy sensation of it sticking to his mouth remained. Focus. The grass had no texture. It was no longer cool and damp. Focus. The drip ceased. Focus. Just focus. Feel. The projection of a farseer did not always require them empty. While there are many different factors, the general rule is that the farther or more complex the task, the more distractions needed to be eliminated. This level of magic, which commonly was known only as ritual, had the farseers spiritually project their senses out of their body. However, since the senses were tied to the body, the farseer never sees as we often would describe it. Violan began to orient himself to his new state of perception. He sensed 2 silver warmths beside him, the captain and the commander, and 30 or so other silver warmths were the soldiers that he had seen. He knew who they were. He knew what they were. He sent a pulse out and touched each of the warmths with his mind. It wasn't strong enough for them to notice, but that wasn't the point. First, he shaped the captain, relying on his memory to form. The speed at which this happened was unknown to Violan, but by the time he was finished, his mind had calibrated to the others, and all the others were formed into the form of the soldiers who guarded him. All right, art done. Violan focused and planted a mental seed in the spot where he was, knowing he would be able to return. He grew out of the seed, extending his branches until a silver bird alighted from his mind onto a branch. He let his mind rest inside it and proceeded to send it out, flying into the pitch-black void around him. As he flew, he remembered the map and sought the earth below. The plants, the water, the animals, the life, everything unfolded before him. He saw the spirit of everything before him. Every living thing was revealed to him in what most would call sight. Soon, the whole island lay before him, though not all of it was revealed. That would require him sending his senses closer. So he did. Silver warmths appeared, shaping themselves into humans. He passed the outer perimeter of the camp and was well into the forest when the first scouting party came into. As we approached, he kept replaying the names of the factions in his mind. Scarfram, Tios, Morlost. At the third name, one of the silver warmths turned darker, becoming more calm, then seemed to burn a bit.
Names about the curve clock. Vanduel. This is
Good times. Names were cool for a farseer, as it allowed them to find individuals easier. This color shift showed that he had found one of his. Violan flew closer, releasing his hold on the imaginary bird and reaching out to Morwolf. He was careful not to let his presence show. People tend to react aggressively if they think their mind is being invaded. And Hopper, he tended to pulse out, a thought shaping into the sound of his voice. More life. The commander stopped to raise his fist, the whole patrol stopping at the order. He pulled arrow and knocked it, and the soldiers did likewise. Violan had got his temper. The magic of Farseerance was limited, but he had a few interesting traits. One of these tricks was being able to create minor illusions. Translucent, it wouldn't fool anyone. However, it could also create sound. Any memory the Farseer had access to could be replayed. Image of the Farseer conjured a the Farseer could conjure could be shown. The second trick, they could perform any of their magic outside of their usual range by linking with the host. While this link need not be voluntary, it was often easier if it was. Thankfully, Fionn only needed to do a simple projection of a Farseer in a row and give it his voice, so he didn't need much. Since people did not like sharing their minds, Farseers were trained to be able to do this without intruding or being noticed. Fionn melded just enough with Morloth to be able to project the image in front of him. All the scouts started and raised their bows, but were disciplined enough not to shoot. It wouldn't have done anything if they had, but at least their pride wouldn't be bruised. Fionn's projected his voice with the image. The wolves are hungering, Morloth. Fionn used Morloth's ears to hear the information. It wasn't necessary, but it was easier. Farseer should have known. Morloth didn't, but he did lower his weapon. Found a Haldarian patrol. Could have taken them out, but Igrath said not to engage. He spat on the ground with obvious disgust. Waste of an opportunity, if you ask me. He called on a knife and quickly drew on the earth floor. It was a crude map of the western coastline, but to his credit, it was accurate. We scouted the patrol routes. They thought they could hide from us on their big cats, but that didn't work.
Brandon, can I welcome Abigail real quick?
Oh, sure.
Just say hey to Abigail. How are you?
Hello.
Hello. I'm okay.
That's cool. Just Brandon's in the middle of his reading. TK went a little bit ago, and we got a couple more. Do you have anything, or no?
No, I just wanted to pop in, say hello, and see how everybody's doing.
Yeah, totally. It's great to see you. I didn't want to interrupt Brendan, but just wanted to make sure you knew where we were because he's got a little bit longer one that he's reading through. So, Brendan, you can continue.
Right. Something felt off to Fuel. One of the warmths seemed to be dimming. He cast his mind over and felt it. It wasn't dying, but it was shrinking away, as if he wanted to hide something. Fionn planted a little seed and returned to Morloth. His rough map was completed with the details he had found. To his credit, it was good information. Excellent work, Captain. I will inform the Lord Commander. I will inform Lord Commander Navarre immediately. Fionn memorized the information on the map and promptly disappeared. He felt scummy being connected to that violent mind for so long. He likes to fight way too much, he thought to himself, and, focusing for a brief second, returned his mind to that initial seed he planted by his body. Fionn was still somewhat afraid of the commander, so instead he melded with the young Early. To his surprise, the young man's mind reacted well, and he didn't seem to notice his presence. I do not know your name, but inform the commander that Captain Morloth has been found. The young man started and read the information. Fionn then projected Morloth's map, and after a moment, heard Igrath's affirmation that he had copied the information. Fionn left and pulled himself back to that previous scene. The scouts had moved on, working their way back on their patrol route again. Fionn carefully moved in and searched, but couldn't find it. The desire to shrink away, the nerves, the feeling that something being wrong. It didn't take him long to find out what it was looking for. Morloth had lied about engaging the others. Apparently, it was an entire squad against one lone Haldarian. He dodged full of arrows, and Morloth soared through his throat. The tiger was taking out first. Ambushed back fixed it left. Fionn carefully extracted himself from the memory, making sure to leave no trace. Held sick, but he had to move on. It was war. Inform the commander when the time came. He soared upward, heading northwest. More Silvermorn, more people and animals. He flew closer, seeing different men, women, and animals. These were clearly war parties, and had made very quick wooden fortresses to protect themselves from infantry and night. Given the fact that siege weaponry is difficult to transport on ships, this made a certain amount of sense. He continued north, asked where the commander's map had any information, and saw more fortress camps. Near the shore was a bright silver light, which he approached, revealing itself to be a great many silver lights. Fionn shrouded his mind in arcane energy, shielding him from touching any of the mines, and sent his senses well. The Haldarians were efficient, establishing a small fortified city on the coast, with multiple fortified outposts farther in the mainland, in old Iklings. That's a run-on sentence, okay. Carefully engineered walls, many to facilitate their various cavalry. There were plenty of other buildings housing workers who forged weapons and armor, sewed leather goods, and performed the other actions necessary for not just an army to thrive. Keelan slowly floated through the city, keeping himself shielded from their minds. He did not want to accidentally reveal his presence, which, while common, was not impossible. He found a large building at the center of the Great Hall, where the leaders gathered. Cautiously, he pushed himself through the wall, looking around. Once his senses were inside, the room had filled with many silver warmths, some milling about, others sitting and eating. At the far end stood a number of individuals, pointing at something on the table. Next to them, standing on the table, was a short, iridescent warp. Colors shifted and swirled like an opal gem in bright light, orange and blue and turquoise and sea green. Upon seeing this, his stomach dropped. No, weird. Keelan pulled his head back and flew as far away from the city as he could in a few short seconds. Norm's gnomes were connected to the realm of fairy, and so already they were connected more deeply. Gnome weirds, however, were those who were even more connected to magic, so much so they had the ability to use magic in now strange and undocumented ways. Keelan did not want to go what gnome could do, and he dared not risk getting caught in this vulnerable state. From above, he took note of the approximate number of human life forms and pulled his senses back toward the center of the island. He focused on the remaining two names and sensed a burning sensation on the northern coast. Moving closer, he found another scout troop, Scarver, taking shelter in a natural cave by the sea. Dylan approached them, making sure to announce Scarver's name. It was more calm than Morlock's, and his men seemed to know what. He haven't found the star gem. Scargrim's reported, relaxed but respectful and serious. It's pretty obvious that we aren't the only ones here looking for it, though. Iranian mage hunters have been out in force, though Haldarians seem to be less concerned with finding it and more concerned about defending their settlement. He took a pass at one of the Confederacy bases, chimed in another of the scouts. Judging from the countenance, it seemed to be Scarabrin's second. They've been constructing quite a few anti-magic pylons. Seems they really want you out. Feeling. Thank you for the information. Lord Commander Kavar will be pleased. Gillen bowed and ended the stealth. He began recalling his senses to his body, pulling in stealth to relay the information. As he flew over the map of the island, he sensed something, the briefest of seconds. He sensed a human running very fast toward the camp. He stopped and opened his senses more. Faintly, very, very faintly, he sensed the presence of a number of humans. He reached in, and it was difficult. It was like he was trying to grab a bar of light. And his senses just wouldn't stick to any of the small silver ones. Suddenly, one of the leads flared, going back to full strength, and Fuelin slipped into the mine. Immediately, he felt panic. Through the eyes of the scout, he saw wounded scouting party members running in full retreat, and they were being chased by a number of men from the Confederacy of Arania. The pursuers held strange weapons that Fuelin had only heard of but never actually seen. And if that enough, they were being chased by a blade gull. The hulking frame was mostly humanoid. However, its arms ended in blades. It was made of metal wheels and cogs. Its knees were jointed backwards and deep to the chest with the light from a crystal providing metal life. Fuelin panicked and pulled out of the scout's mind, and, still reeling from the desperation that they felt, threw his senses back to his body, using them to possess his body temporarily. Commander, the Elsa's unit is retreating. They're almost here. Iranians gonna go. Fuelin was tight. He wasn't a fool, and he wasn't weak. But even the most skilled of people will make mistakes and will fail. Unfortunately, the effects of Fuelin's failure hold on the spell were drastic in his body. Its senses, being in temporary possession of his body, realized that they were not where they were. While they were where they should be, they weren't how they should be, and immediately attempted to snap back along the route he took to get back to his body. To Fuelin, it felt like he was being pulled violently back to his last location, which would make doubt, a blur of color mixed with darkness of all of his astral perception, made him feel what could be described as mental whiplash. His mind felt something like whiplash as he flew immediately back toward his body, and the mental strain overloaded his senses. The map and the world melted into a mesh of silver light that exploded into a disgusting multicolored mess as his mind strained under pressure. Was happening? All he could hear was roaring, deafening sound that didn't actually exist. It simultaneously felt like eternity in a microsecond. Then the real-world senses exploded into his mind as he properly returned to how his senses should have been in his body. The resulting overload caused his body to lock up,
His taste burned, his mouth uncontrollably salivated to try to put out a non-existent fire. His eyes clenched tight, trying to block out the harsh real light that not even his veil could. His legs cramped, fiery pain shooting through them up into his lower back. As he fell, every muscle convulsed and spasmed uncontrollably. Mercifully, darkness clawed into his mind and he slipped into unconsciousness. As he did, he heard the cry of a woman calling for help. It echoed faintly, becoming muffled like he was underwater. Then darkness and silence took him.
End.
Very nice.
End of chapter.
Hold on, I have to mute myself and let me unmute Ian. I muted him toward the very end just because his stuff kept coming through. But anyway, all right. So, but it's not your fault, Ian. It's just the computer.
Forgot you could do that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not a problem. Not a problem.
Oh,
I didn't know that I could do it either. But yeah, okay. And next time I'll focus on whoever's reading because apparently you can do that too. But yeah, so one of the things, obviously I don't think this one's as polished as the previous one that you read. However, for all its clunkiness, I think that what is happening is fascinating. I like the ways that you're explaining in very visceral forms of magic, like how and what he's feeling. One of the things that just clicked to me, I don't know why it didn't click to me last time, unless it did and I'm just forgetting, but the whole idea of a farseer is essentially you saying, I want to write a strategy game in novel form and being able to see like this big picture view of the situation, you know, and just making it work in such an honestly amazing, that concept is an amazing concept, in my opinion. Not just the farseer as a farseer, but the farseer as a tool to allow for the large overview of a strategy game story, you know?
Yeah, that's probably part of it. It wasn't conscious, but part of it was I wanted to have this character who could be and not be a good fighter. You know?
Right.
I don't know. It's just, you always hear war stories from a warrior's perspective. You don't always hear a war story from a ability person's perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
This is
You don't hear about the guy in comp.
yeah. This is the same world that my strategy game that I'm trying to make is made. So you're right, it is.
Yeah,
You're right.
it's a strategy game story. Yeah. And so, yeah, the other thing is, like you were saying, it's signal core, what we would call signal core in the army, right? Like this is essentially like signal core stuff he's doing, which is not something that you really think about in medieval situations, but they had their own versions of signal core, smoke signals, you know, all the rest, and that's a fascinating take that you don't really hear very often. I love it conceptually. There's definitely a lot to do with that part of the story, but yeah. And anyone else?
I think the way that you've set up your magic system so far is really, really interesting. Brandon Sanderson's second law of magic is the limitations are more interesting than the abilities. And I can see the limitations that you've set up with the Farseer abilities, and it makes it really, really interesting. And I like that. I like the way that you described the pain of being shoved back into the regular senses as they ought to be. And I thought that really worked.
Nice. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I definitely think you got some good bones going.
Bones are important.
What's straight?
I don't know how many times I've just had like muscle falling apart. Why is it falling apart? Oh.
Did you need some more joint alignment?
Where?
Yeah, it definitely needs polishing, I know, but I'm not trying to put a final product first. I'm just
Right, exactly. You got to get.
No.
Yep. Sarah, Abigail, or Ian, you guys have anything?
Well, I really
Sarah, you're on mute.
Yes. No, look.
I really liked how visceral it was. It's very sensory. That's one of the things that I like about Edgar Rice Burroughs. I talked about him earlier before a lot of you came on, is that his stuff is very visceral. So, on you for getting that right.
Nice.
Sarah, Abigail, anything? Nope. Cool. All right. Well, Sarah, did you want to move on to you? Are you ready for your thing?
How are we on background noise? We have noise. Okay.
Well, I can go. That's fine.
Your spot.
Do what? You'll find another
Let me-
spot.
At your spot. Hold that thought.
Okay. Well, mine is more conceptual, so I can go ahead and go really quickly if that's fine with you. Cool. All right. So I have a concept that's been sitting for a while now. I've been wanting to move into more younger person stuff. I kind of steered away from young kid stuff for a while with poetry because of Dr. Seuss and not wanting to be compared and all that other kind of stuff, and everything that's rhyme is for kids these days and blah blah blah. Well, I've really noticed the need for that in children's entertainment, especially as I'm trying to get back into that field, and with this job that I've just landed coming up, and everything, we're still waiting on background check and other stuff on that, but should be not a problem. The I have this series that I wanted to kind of dive into. Each poem is one episode, so it's really short kind of thing for little kids. Could be little picture books kind of a thing, and it's just very conceptual. At this point, I'm having a really hard time because I want there to be milestones in each episode that you're looking forward to as a child, so stuff that gets repeated in ways and shapes of and turns of phrase that you recognize over and over, episode to episode. But this is the concept. Alexander Obvious is an ancient and learned mouse who once drank from the fountain of youth. He immediately made his wife drink, and the two have been traveling the world having adventures ever since. In each episode, he is in a unique part of the world and is accosted by a different predatory creature. He uses his wits to get out of it, and if he's given help in his endeavors by a kind creature, he grants them a thimble of water from the fountain of youth. We never see how he carries around the water. And then the first episode, I have a title, and that's literally it at this point, because I'm still trying to kind of figure out some of these milestones of these turns of phrase that keep coming in every episode. I can't figure out all of them until I start writing, but I want one or two sorts of this is where the story turns sort of thing. And the first episode would be called Alexander Obvious and the Copperhead Kerfuffle, and the further stories will have a similar title going forward. If you have any, basically I want to really delve into the aesthetic and the feel of, a wild location. So Wild Kids Wildlife books kind of tap into that sort of feel, right? And go into, you've got a different kind of creature in each and every episode. So Copperhead's going to be South Carolina or something like that. And you'll see Venus flytraps, and you'll see, all kinds of other stuff that's specifically native to that area, and then do the same thing over again, and it's just fun for the kids. They get to see the weird, cool animals and get excited about the turns of phrase and the swashbuckling nature of Alexander Obvious. So, thoughts, possible pitfalls, anything you're seeing that you're good, bad, whatever.
I love it.
Is question, is Alexander Obvious captain in any of the local armies, so that he would then be Captain Obvious?
That would be fun. No. No, I'm picturing a world similar to the Rescuers, where essentially you got this sort of underground world of mice and stuff. But even then, he's like this like unbelievable legendary hero, you know, similar to if we had like the Apostle John still walking around like some people think he is. Yeah. Right? Like and like he's just Alexander Obvious is like, you know, essentially some mythical hero to all the other mice and animals and things. So
I like it.
It sounds great.
yeah. Now I just gotta write it.
Any of y'all ever read any of the Rescuers novels? Just out of curiosity.
I have not. There were novels.
First one.
Okay, I'm gonna go find those now.
Right?
They're gonna be hard to find.
Go ahead.
You mean it's not just Redwall?
Like that. Well, I was gonna say the Rescuers hit me really hard as a kid, and I actually have a reference to it. The original Rescuers. I have a reference to the original Rescuers in my superhero series. One of my characters, you know, she's like 17. She's been in the foster care system forever, and because she's one of these people who has like this delayed puberty situation, so she looks like a little kid. They treat her like a little kid, you know, essentially. And the one thing that she likes to do to get away from everything is to shut her door and watch her old stolen from previous foster home clamshell white Disney copies of things like The Rescuers. And I specifically referenced The Rescuers because of Penny, because of the long lost orphan, you know, type thing going on there. Because she's 17. She's been that orphan for too long now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, but that was just, I love Rescuers, so yeah.
Yeah, the novels are written by Marjorie Sharp. I think there is 8 total. I do not recall right now because there's also a supplemental series about Bernard.
Nice.
I didn't
Figure that out.
I've been able to get copies through thrift books. They're all really good. I mean, they're a little silly.
Yeah.
It was mid-century children's lit from England. It's gonna be a little silly.
Yes, please. So, Sarah, you're in a good spot now?
Yes.
Okay.
Before you start,
Yes.
would you like a progress report?
Yes, I would. On your art that you're working on? Let's see if we can see it, if it'll... Still pretty pixelated, but let me see if I can focus you. Hold on. Focus.
Yeah, it's coming into clarity.
Looks good.
That's great.
Digging it, man.
So it's an inch big. I can't comment.
What?
She said it.
I'm on my phone. It's literally an inch big. I can't comment.
So, would you like to tell the story behind this page, or do you just want to go to Sarah?
No, you could do the story behind the page. Go ahead. Sarah's ready.
Okay.
It'll take a second, right?
Oh, these characters have been hiding in a cave because they got into a fight in the middle of Dwarf Market. So they're wanted by the dwarf police. So they're hiding in a cave, in addition to being wanted by the dwarf police for starting a fight in the middle of the market. They're also wanted because the main character has a magic sword that the evil queen wants. And the one character was I guess you'd call him a roguish halfling, is their guide, and he wakes up in the middle of the night and says, "All right, we gotta go. I can hear the dwarves coming." He has superior hearing to anybody he can hear. He can hear when anything's moving inside of the rocks. So he hears the dwarves coming, and he wakes everyone up, and now they're diving down a hole, and they're about to land in the middle of his living room, essentially, and now his wife has to deal with them.
Nice. Sounds fun. All right, Sarah, you ready to roll?
Nathan, I like this part because I edited all of Ian's scripts before he was drawing them. So there was continuity and all that good stuff. I don't know if you changed much of it, but
At this part, I haven't changed hardly any. It's the later parts when they're in Anwin. I changed a bunch of stuff there, and I still have things that need to be changed.
all right. I was kind of juggling back and forth what I wanted to read. Something that I started more recently or something that I have completed. And I think I landed on my Eowyn story, which I would only give you the part because it's super long. But yeah, it's more interesting than what I have written or because I haven't gotten to the climax of that yet. I just started. But for my Eowyn story, I really wanted to kind of explain Eowyn's background because she's such a secondary character in Tolkien's world. And he gives her all of these emotions, and it doesn't explain why exactly. So I gave her quite a background and had a lot of fun with it. So hang on, how long is chapter 1? Well, I'll read chapter 1, and if you want me to read more on chapter 2, the chapters aren't long. But yeah. So I just called it Eowyn, White Lady of Rohan. And yeah. So chapter 1. Eowyn stood at the top of the stair to Edoras, watching the company of horsemen grow smaller and smaller as they rode to protect yet another village attacked by orcs. Any who looked upon the White Lady had their spirits lifted by the show of grace, inner strength, and devotion to her brother Aemir and cousin Theodred, riding again into the distance without her. But Eowyn's thoughts were not about her relatives, but with one of the men riding beside them. Aldar, he was called, named after the great king of old. Eowyn had noticed him the previous year, when he pledged his loyalty to the king, as was the custom when a man came of age. Theoden King had heard his oath without comment, without feeling, without thanks. Eowyn had felt sorry for the young man, as she had felt sorry for many another warrior who had pledged his loyalty to the weak old man who cared not. But these men found able leaders in her cousin Theodred, in her brother Aemir, and in their friend Elfhelm. The riders of Theodred and Aemir were making a name for themselves, bringing succor to beleaguered villages and death to all orcs that crossed their path. Despite the differences in age, the two cousins were extremely close and often joined their Eorid together. Aldor, like many another young man before him, found a place among them. Eowyn would have taken no further notice of him than any other, had it not been for a chance meeting. She had been practicing her swordplay in a dark, quiet area in Edoras. She had dulled the shine of her blade, so no light would reflect from it and attract attention, as no one knew she had it. All she knew she had learned by copying others in secret, especially her brother, and fighting in secret with her friend Mabe in childhood. Daily she went through the exercises Aemir had been taught as a child. She had been going through them when suddenly a man's voice from behind her said, "You need to be aware of your surroundings at all times." Before the speaker had said 3 words, Eowyn had whirled around and found herself pointing her sword at the young man who had made his pledge a month before. She looked to see signs of mockery in his face, but found none. She sighed. Thought that I was getting good at being aware, at least. Apparently not. Or perhaps I am not one of your cousin's scouts for nothing, he returned. She inclined her head, accepting the words as a balm to her ruffled pride. Alder at your service, my lady, he said, bowing. Would it be an accurate guess to see that no one knows about this? He nodded at her sword, and she realized she still had it pointed at him. Suddenly flustered, she lowered it, shaking her head in answer to his question. Not even Lord Aemir? Again she shook her head. They want me to be a lady, not understanding that the blood of warriors sings in my too. Alder nodded solemnly. Why should you not be both, as the shield maidens of old? Eowyn found herself smiling at him. That is my thought, too, which I argued as a child. But no one would hear me but my friend, not my uncle, nor my brother, nor my cousin. So I practiced all these years, watched boys training in secret all these years, hidden all the books I could find on the subject all these years. But it seems for naught as you've startled me so easily. It was not all that easy, Alder admitted. I confess this is not the first time I've tried to meet you this way, but you always kept your guard up so I could not surprise you, until today. Years of training for the Hall kept Eowyn's face nearly blank, but her eyes widened fractionally in surprise, and her cheeks turned a shade more red. Thank you for your kind words, she said, wondering how her voice could be so steady. He bowed slightly in response and said, Perhaps my lady could use a tutor, or perhaps a partner as she practices? I would welcome your company and advice, Eowyn said boldly. I have long yearned for a way to learn more than these boyish exercises, despite their necessity. And thus began Eowyn's lessons in swordplay, held nearly every day that Theodred's Eored stayed in the Great Hall. As Eowyn had long made it her habit to ride out each morning and each afternoon, it proved fairly simple to meet away from the walls in the eyes of Edoras. And under Aldor's tutelage, Eowyn became stronger, faster, and better at wielding her sword. She was more confident and bold, and even began laughing with Aldor. That's the end of the first chapter.
Am I allowed to say, "Aww"?
That's funny.
That was great.
It was very, very well written.
Really good.
And leave it to an editor to have good writing.
Yep. Oh boy. Plus, you said you'd had this one for a while, right?
Yeah, I started this years ago, and I was working on it when I was out of work because I had surgery on my shoulder. And then COVID, I was working on it. So I finished it during COVID.
I gotcha.
So when is this supposed to be taking place? How long before the Lord of the Rings books is this supposed to be taking place?
I believe this scene is set like 5 years before Aragorn shows up in Edoras, if I remember correctly. Because I decided reading her story as Tolkien has it, and like, okay, she's obviously depressed. Why? And the reason ends up being that, she falls in love with Aldor, and, he dies because...
Yeah.
That has
Everything's dying. Yeah, that's kind of her thing. Everything is dying around her.
So Aldor dies, Theodred, her cousin, dies, so there's this deep spiral.
Maybe you're not on me, Brenda. You're just quiet.
Yeah. I'm just doing the Oprah Winfrey. You get to if this.
Yeah, I was like,
not respectful, whatever the word is.
irreverent.
Yes, it.
Yeah,
That's the one.
No, but like that's something that I think they touch on in the movie, and Tolkien definitely like touches on it more, but still it's not like
Eowyn's
definitely more side character minus, her big moment. But the thing that I think is so amazing about what Tolkien does is she is in a dying society and everything's dying around her, and all she wants is the dying to stop. And she feels like she has to kill people to make the dying stop instead of bring life like a woman does. You know what I mean? Like, and she didn't really have a lot of place to do that, granted, until, the House of Healing. Until she finally let go of all of the pain, and even after finishing mourning Theoden fully, but it was just, yeah, everything was crumbling around her, and she just thought, like, I just wanted to stop. I think that is the thing that they don't quite get in the movie, but I think Tolkien nails it in the book. She just wanted it to stop. It wasn't about her own glory necessarily, although she longed for she felt the death of the glory of her forebears, right? She felt the death of Rohan, not just, of her people, as a culture, right? And so there was that too. But then that's why she wanted to be Shield Maiden. That's why she wanted to, why she fell in love with Aragorn, is because like he represented everything that was dying, right?
One thing I really leaned into when I was writing this was there's the line where Aragorn says, what do you fear? And she says, I fear a cage.
Right.
And I really leaned into.
Yeah.
Obviously, don't get the first chapter, but.
Well, if everyone's good, I'm going to stop the recording and we can talk till whenever. But we'll go ahead and say, since everyone shared, be your family's bard. Do not turn to the right and to the left, and the Lord will be with you wherever you go. We'll see you next time in the trenches on the Broodcast on Poets at War. Bye, folk.
This is the Broodcast on Poets at War, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. To join, go to joshuadavidling.com and click the Discord link in the right-hand sidebar.